Hello, my name's Robert Addams and I'm from Papercrafts Limited, and I'm here today to demonstrate for you some of the all-occasion dies from our range. Now, I've been designing for crafters for nearly 10 years now, and I've started with CDs with titles such as roses, pop-up cards and stretch cards. And I've also now, in the last 2 years, started designing our range of dies called All Occasion. Now, I've tried to make these dies sort of small, relatively inexpensive, but more importantly, that they work all together, they coordinate nicely. Now, today, what I'd like to do is run through with you a small selection from our range, and we're also going to look at the words. Now, these are a range of dies that we've introduced, and I've chosen a typeface which I think looks really nice. It works for both masculine and feminine cards, has a lovely little hint of Art Deco to it as well, and it also works vertically and horizontally. Now, I'm going to begin with a few demonstrations and bring all these dies in, have a chat to you a little bit about some sort of hints and tips, things that I've discovered along the way. Hopefully I'm not teaching you how to suck eggs, maybe things that you've learned as well along the way, but have some fun with the crafting and just generally hopefully inform you a little bit about the dies and how we use them, and some ideas for card making as well. So just before I start, a quick word to say that with the dies that I'm using, our all occasion dies, that you don't need a release paper or to shim them. They should work perfectly, and they will work in all of your cutting machines, from the smallest to the biggest electronic one as well. And I'll, as I said, just chat to you about different bits, pieces and elements as we go along through the demonstrations. Okay, so what I'd like to do is start off with a really nice little card. It's an easel card, but I think it's rather fun. I'll give you the measurements that I've used along the way if you want to make a similar card. You can see it here, and I said it's just a very simple easel mechanism that folds and then goes flat like that. I rather like it, and we've got a nice sort of image here. We're going to use the butterflies, and I'm going to introduce those to you as well, and we've got our type here as well. What I'd like to do, as I said, just make this up and show you the little band and really just how I've done the card, and then do a little bit of cutting and pasting as well. So I'm going to start now with my card stock, and I'm using a Centura Pearl. It's a 300 GSM, so it's quite a thick card. And for my measurements here, I've done 90 square for the millimetre box, and I've drawn a line down here. This is going to be my guideline, because this is quite a thick card, and I find with the coated surface it wants to spring back into shape, but we want it to fold flat. Okie dokie, so that's drawn up 90 by 90, so 180, and a line there. The first thing I'm going to do is just score a little line into here with the back of my blade. Now, you can use a scoring tool. I tend to favour my cutting blade here, only because I've done it so much in the past, but please bear in mind, I'll tell you when I'm cutting. This I'm just scoring with. I find it gives me a very neat, sharp line without damaging the surface too much. Just pick that up, and you can see now it's got a nice crisp score line. Again, I'm going to fold this quite tightly, in and out just a little bit, so that it's not too springy when the card closes. What I'm trying to avoid doing is breaking this edge too much as well. So that's my first part of the card. Now, the second part is the mechanism here, and if I just show you on this one, you can see that main part of the card is going to then fold. One half is going to fold and stick on to our flat surface here. So back to here, and a little bit of measurement. So half a 90 is 45, and at some point I'm going to pop my glasses on, and I can just about make out what I'm doing. And again, draw your lines there, but can I give you my first handy hint from years of measuring as a designer? I find it's a good idea to always put in 3 marks just takes another second longer. But if you've got one of them out, it's pretty obvious that something somewhere is slightly wrong with your measurement. If all three are pretty much in line, then you know that you've done it properly. And I say that only from years of experience of measuring slightly wrongly and getting it wrong. But I found with three little marks in there, that tends to give you a much better idea of what's happening. Again, I've just used my blade to create a score line here, and that's what I'm going to do, is to fold that. Now when we have our card, what I'm going to do is everything in reverse. So just fold that there, and the top of the card is going to come down onto it like so. So the next thing to do will be just to glue this. Now you can see with my measuring, I perhaps wasn't as wildly accurate as I could be. It's just gone over slightly there. That was probably more of my cutting skills. But when we glue it, you won't notice that little mistake. Now before I do glue that on, we've got to come and make the surface to it. And so what I'm going to do is just pop this to one side, come back to the card here, because I'll show you like that. We're going to stick that onto here. First layer goes down, and I'm just going to cut with two colours to begin with. I've got a nice purple there, and I've got my Miri board here as well. I've gone on and pre-drawn this out just to save a little bit of time. But what I've done is just moved in 10mm on this one. So if that was 90, my Miri board here now becomes 80mm square. And so with my trusty craft knife, I'm just going to cut this one out. Now, another handy hint, and many of you have probably cottoned onto this, if I was going to use silver, and incidentally I'm not, to cut the words, I could have actually, because I'm matte and layering with this, I'll just pop that out of the way, because I'm matte and layering with this, I could have actually cut a word out from here, and once I put it down, you wouldn't know that that had been in there underneath. So that's again just a sort of a handy hint on there for you. Okay, that's just coming up a wee bit big, so I'm going to just shave a little bit more off the two sides on this one. I tend to favour a slightly bigger border if I can, so I'll just take a little bit off of there, and again a little bit off of this side as well, and just measure that up. That's me perhaps not measuring as accurately as I could do. First layer down, and so now I'm using my trusty glue pen here and tape pen, tape roller, whatever you want to call it, and a few drops, down it goes. I tend to line up with one corner before you sort of commit to it, and then a little bit of a press, and that's down. Okay, so that's my first section there, and now I'm going to use my final and top layer on there, and that again is a little piece of my card here. I don't know if it shows up on the camera. This is a textured card, and again a handy hint, you probably do it anyway, is just always do your marking up and your drawing onto the reverse side. That way you don't mark the surface, and of course when you stick it down, none of your markings appear on the final piece of card as well. Now that's a very obvious thing, but I'll tell you what, for years I didn't do it. So I'm going to share that with you. I don't know if it's just me, it's boy crafting or what. Okie dokie, so that's my layer there. We can see that coming up on here. And again, I'm going to use my pen to just stick that down with. You can use whatever you like. I just personally favour this because it's quick and easy. It's a permanent one, and it tends to do a pretty nice job of sticking down. There we go. So those are my three layers now, all stuck down. So the next thing to do is to come back and look at the words. Now, just get myself organised here for a second. If I can just show you this card again, the first thing I want to introduce to you are the words here. So I'm going to put happy birthday in, and use that as my guide to do the rest of the layout here. So basically, happy birthday goes in, and then where I place that will be dependent on where I want to place the butterflies as well. Just before I start with that, just to say that we can vary this card, and I've got one like this. So again, we're just sort of changing the shape a little bit. And last but not least, you could go for a circular one as well if you wanted. Okay, so let me put that to one side. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to have a little tidy up. I've got to the stage where I've got the top part here. Now I'm ready to do some cutting, and I'm going to use, as I said, my dies here. I'd like to introduce to you my dies here. Now, this one says birthday, and I've got happy matching that as well. So they come with a little wire binder to them both, and you can snap these off if you want to. I'm just going to keep them there together at the moment. I'm using the smaller ones, so I'm going to put this through the machine this way and just put my little bit of card over there. Okay, so cutting time. First things first, I need my cutter. I'll just bring that into here and clear the decks. Now, these dies, as I've said, will work on all sorts of machines. You're not really limited to any particular one, whichever one you want to work with. I just tend to work with my one here a little bit more frequently than I do with some of the others. Okay, I'm going to go for I'm colour coordinating here, so I've gone for a slightly darker purple to help me with the pink there, and I'm just, with my craft knife, sorry, off camera there, just going to slice a piece off and show you here. This is what I'm going to go with, and I've just got to make sure that it works with my dies, that I've got enough of the cardstock to work with it. What I do love about dies is the fact that you can use offcuts very effectively. Now again, this has got a texture to it, so I'm going to pop the texture side down onto the top of my die there and just bring in my top plate like so and run that through the machine. A bit of cracking and a bit of crankling. That's par for the course on this particular machine. That's my waste there. I'm just going to tidy that up, and I've just made one big mistake then, but I can retrieve it, is that I've actually, these drop out so nicely, I have just brushed away the word I need. Luckily, I can see it down on the floor, but what I'd like to show you now is just to release this. I'm going to give it a tap here on this, and you'll see the bits. I'm being a bit cautious because I don't want it to fly off. And there we go, all the words are dropping out. The top part, you could have, if you wanted to, and it's not a bad thing, just done the whole lot if you wanted to, but I just wanted the small words. But you can put a big piece of paper, or card rather, must stress I'm using card. And incidentally, I'm going to stop there and tell you the card I'm using is just short of 200 GSM, around 190, 200 GSM card to cut the words with here. The dies do like to work with thicker cards, so I would suggest 250, anything between 200 and 300 is a great range to work with. Okay, but as I was saying, I could have used a large one and then kept the bigger words, birthday word, for another time. So I've got happy and birthday. Now I'm going to retrieve, luckily, happy, but you can see that basically everything just pops out so quickly out there. The dies are Teflon coated and it just slides away. So, and again, this is the nice thing, it's warts and all. I'm just going to dive down here, grab my happy. There we go, retrieved it, and I've got it there. Next thing to do is pop it back on to my card here. If I just pop this to here, doing it the right way round as well. My happy and birthday. I'm just going to lay that out roughly in position there. I'm going to use the butterflies, and we'll have a look at that die in a moment, and use that then to cut those and put those into position. Now, my trusty kitchen towel. I use this because I'm going to start to glue. I want to show you what I'm doing here. So I'm going to take the word happy. Everything's sticking to my mat, so bear with me. Pop it upside down, and I'm also going to pop my glasses on now. Loads of different glues on the market. I'm using the Cosmic Shimmer here. I just like it because the tip isn't too big and I can just put a little dot of glue on, and that's all you need to do with these. I've got to stress it's very easy to over glue a die, and you don't really need that much on there. You see, I pop those on there. If you do think you've overdone it, again, keep the work surface clean, just pop a little bit of kitchen towel down and most of the glue will stay on there, but you won't have overdone it. Bring this back in here and I'll pop my word happy down there. You could use tweezers to place this if you wanted to. I said I'm quite happy just to do everything by eye. And again, just a few dots of glue. Like so. As you don't have to overdo it. Whoops, sticking to me there. Some on the B, and I know I put a too big a blob on that. A little bit on the Y there. And while it's stuck to my finger, just pop it down onto my kitchen towel. See, that's just taken the worst off of that. So it's not going to splodge over. This does dry clear, so it's not the end of the world, but I try not to have too much on if I can. A little bit of wiggle room before I push it down fully. The beauty of these, unlike peel-offs in the old days where that would be going wobbly, you've got lots of control with it. There we go. So that's my happy birthday. Next thing to do is to come in and cut these butterflies. So I'm going to do the same thing again. If I just bear with me, I'm just going to move that to one side and just bring my machine back in, and I'm using, as I said, the 3 small butterfly dies here, and for the stock I'm going to match the purple again. I could really have done with a pair of scissors, but I'm working with my craft knife here, so let me just slice a piece out of there. And as per the last one, this is textured. So I'm going to just remove that plate, pop this down here. Just remove my glasses for a second and pop the working surface down onto the die, pop it in there and run it through the machine. I always go through twice. I think it's really laziness. I kind of get back to where I started, but this will cut beautifully. Again, it's the same stock. It's about 200 GSM. And I'm going to be a little bit more careful now because I don't want to throw these away. There we go. I'll drop one out of there. One's dropped out of there. And one is still here in the machine. So I'm going to carefully pick those 2 up and just pop them on my card. And just show you again with a tap. Out it comes, all my bits. If there's anything left in there, you can use your pokey tool to release it. I'm going to just, just tiny bit there and just drop that out, and that's it. It's as simple as that. A lovely die, this one. I use them a lot, the butterflies. I do like them in my card making. Again, a tap if there's any bits left in there. Give it a tap, you can come back with your pokey tool. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping now onto the floor and pop that back there. And again, just quickly place that out of the way. Right, so we're back to our card, and I'm going to keep the bigger one. If I just bring this one back into shot, I'm going to probably put the bigger one, I think, just down here. I could cut that twice, but to save a bit of time, I'll just do that. And it's really more of the same. I'm going to just glue again, have my piece of tissue ready if I need it. In fact, I could glue onto it like so. Pop a little bit, and we can lift the wings up. So I think just a little bit on the body, take a dab off from there and pop this one on at a slightly jaunty angle, hold the body down. Now you can, I again use my pokey tool. I've got a very nice craft knife here. I'm using the handle just to put a little bit of pressure on. But when that's dried, and I'll just show you here, we can lift the wings a little bit as well. So the trick with this one, I find, with the butterflies is don't glue the wings, because you want to lift those up. Unless, indeed, that's what you want to do. If that's what the look you're going for, you can. So again, hold it down, a little bit of pressure just to hold it into place. When that's glued, I can now lift these up a little bit. So we're nearly there. This is all ready to come together with my mechanism, and just again a handy hint with this one, the card's double-sided. I don't know if it's picking up, it's got a slightly nicer colour to it on one side, so that's the one I want to show as it opens and closes, and that's what I'm going to do on this one. And we use the top half to glue onto. That's going to hold that part there, and that's going to actually tidy up my slightly sloppy folding there. What I like about this, as I said, I can hide all my problems. So what I'm going to do is just pop the card here. Let's just show you like this, and just pop that out the way so you can see what's going on, and just pop that back down there like so. Now I've got a tiny little bit that's over, so no harm with my craft knife just to come along, straighten that up. And what's going to happen now is I'm hoping this will now have a folding mechanism and just a little lock there. So it's a strip of silver card, strip of purple, stick that down, and then pop my butterfly onto there. So bear with me a second, I'm just going to grab some bits and pieces here. And again, this is what I call crafting on the hoof. I'm just going to cut this all by eye and then just stick down. So I'm going to start off with a piece of silver, strip of silver, about this long. And I'm just going to manually cut it there. And a little strip of purple. You can measure if you want to. I'm just doing this by eye, like so. And then this will have some glue on it, like so. And I will stick that, just clean my work surface as I go, along here like so, just measuring it there. Now I need this at 90 to match my card. So tidy up one end there, and I can measure 90 mil. If I dig deep amongst the chaos on my desk here, there we go, 90 mil. Now, although I've measured it and it should all be accurate, it's not a bad thing just to line it up. Yeah, 90 mil. You could now stick this on and then just cut it afterwards if you want to make sure it's definitely going to work. But I think I'm pretty much there. So a little bit of a slice there, a cut, and down it goes. Now there's no real right or wrong. I'm just going to come up by about a centimetre here and place it in position there, and that should be enough just to lock the card into place like so. I'll show you here. You can just lock the card like that. I'm really aware of the fact that postage is expensive. Now I could have put these on foam pads. I've got some here. Could have done some nice 1mm foam pads and just lifted it onto that if I wanted it to. But that starts to just raise the height of everything on there. So I've decided not to, but there's enough there, you can see it works quite nicely, so it really is up to you. Last but not least then, pop my little butterfly on there, and I'm going to use the same gluing technique, just a few dots on here. Whoops, let's dry it up a little bit. So let me just keep my work surface clean, take some of that off, and again just put my butterfly at a bit of an angle there and let it dry. And so when I open everything up, it's going to lock in like so. I can just show you here. So that gives us a really nice little catch on the mechanism there. Okay, so that's the first card, and when this is dry, let me just see, it should be okay now. I'm just going to lift the wings up slightly. There we go, that just gives a little bit of lift, as I said earlier, but make sure your glue's dry. And you could again use your pokey tool. I'm being a bit careful I don't cut it. Okay, we've used the happy and the birthday die here. Incidentally, the happy will work with the Christmas, anniversary and the rest of the range. All of the sizes of the type and the words will work together. So that's something we've designed in the overall layout of the dies for you. So I've used the small butterfly ones here, 3 in a set. I think they look lovely. And just a really nice little card. It's a bit of fun. Serving suggestion for you. I'd now like to introduce you to our Trellis corner die. I love this die, it's really versatile and you can do a lot with it. It's one of my favourite dies, and over the course of the demonstration I'm going to give you some hints and tips on using it, because some people were a little unsure of how to use it. Now I've got to stress this is what we call a reverse cut die, so it stays within the paper, and I'll show you some examples which will hopefully visually explain it. But you can cut it out as well, so I'll come and discuss that a little bit later on. But initially what I want to do is show you how you can use this die and show you the versatility of it for card making. And probably the best way to do that is to start off with some samples I just want to run you through, and then we're going to do a demonstration. I've got a nice little card to make for you. So if I just start off with showing you in its simplest form, we can use the trellis corner here to create just a single little corner. Makes for a lovely die cut, and you can see it stays within the card, and that's what I mean by being reverse cut. Now this is one of my favorites, because what I love about this is that you can put anything in the middle. What we're really concentrating on are the corners here, and this is where I think this die comes into its own, because it creates this lovely aperture for us in order to put our subject for the card within it. It frames it beautifully, and all we're going to do is just place this around the corner. And again, on the first demonstration I'll talk through and explain everything to you. Now we can take that even further, and on our next card here what I've got are my 4 corners, but we can now place the image within, i.e. we can use our die to create further patterns within our outer pattern there. So that's another example of what can be done with it. But it doesn't, I've just shown you square cards here. We're by no means limited to those, because we can really take it to whatever level we want to. And here you can see all I've done is almost like chevrons top and bottom, again creating a visual area for you. So that, I hope, is starting to give you an idea of how we can use it. Now again, away from square cards, I can come here and just show you that we can use just the 2 elements here. And this way you can just use it to embellish like the top of the card. That, I hope, shows you the versatility. And last but not least, we can really go to town with this one and have bits everywhere. So it is as versatile or as simple as you want to make it. Either way, I think you'll agree it does produce a very dynamic and quite a pretty card as well. So let's start off with a demonstration, and I'll show you how we cut with the die and to get the best out of it, and just a few hints and tips as we go along the way. So what I'd like to do is produce a card to show you here, and I'm going to go for a card like so, but I'm going to put happy birthday. We've been exploring happy birthday. I've got a bow here. I'm going to pop happy birthday in there and pop this on purple and match my type as well. So I'm going to show you how we get to here using this die here. So first of all, let me just show you what I'm going to cut on. And I have pre-prepared my card here, and I'm going to put a base down And let's get one that fits. There we go. That's going to be my base there, and I'm going to cut with my die here. So what I've got to do is just place it within the corner here. If I just remove that card from underneath there, I think the best way to explain this is just what we want to do is leave an edge around it. Now you can visualize this, do it visually, and I'm allowing a couple of mil like that. You could go right to the corner, but that's getting very, very close. So I would suggest you just come in and just pop it about there. Now you can see it's moving around for me. I will need to tape this down. And again, a handy hint here for you is to actually place the tape, I think, already on the die, like so. Just pull it back a bit so it's not going to touch the paper. And then carefully line up your die. And I say carefully, you're just visualizing that. I've got 2 mil either side. I'm happy with that. And I pop the tape down. That holds it into position. And I'm obviously going to go on and do the others there. But let me show you how we cut it. So I'll just bring my cutter in here and talk to you a little bit about that. Incidentally, holding it on the tape helps in a number of ways. One of those is the fact that I can now keep this in position and it won't move. Also, on my particular cutter, I'm going to cut upside down, so I'm going to flip this over. But before I do that, a few little things to say. This is a good machine. They're all good machines, they all cut. But what we want to do is try and put this into the machine with as least resistance as possible. So instead of trying to go this way and suddenly hitting like a brick wall, it's easier to cut this way and allow this to go through the machine like so. It's instead of hitting it all at once, it has a chance to keep up with it. And that's what I'm going to do. So I've got to flip mine obviously upside down that away and then put my base plate on it and then run it through the machine. You do really only need to go through once. I'm just coming back to where I started. The least times that you put through it, probably the least amount of stress on the card as you cut it. Okay, you'll see that will just pull away like so. And then I'll just take out my bits here like that. And there we go. That's our first corner there. I'll just clear this. Now, a few things to note. As it cuts, it actually gives us an embossing line. You can see that on the camera there. And that embossing line will be a guide if we want to cut it. But for now, what I'm going to do is just get the next one into position. Before I do that, I'll just remove my tape, because what we've got to be careful of is that we don't get any of these little squares on our work, because one of those will actually indent as it cuts through. And you can see I had I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, I've got a tiny little dent. You can probably hardly see it, and we'll cover that up anyway. Okay, now the die's Teflon coated. I'll give it a bash. You can see all the bits have come out as I was cutting. If anything stays in there, some tiny corners, to be honest, I usually cut again. You can get 3 or 4 cuts, and I find it usually drops out on the next one. So don't worry about that. We don't need any releasing papers or anything like that. Okay. Our first cut's done, so we're going to do the next one here. And again, all I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to line it up. But my old trick, let's pop the tape on first. Because with the tape on first, when we've got it in position, it's simply a case of sticking it down. Now I'm cutting on 300 GSM card here. And it's got quite a surface to it. It's a shiny surface, so it's a bit skiddy. So this is where it's great. I can just line that up. I'm happy with that. Pop my tape down and I'm ready for the next cut. So again, that's going to go in the machine that away. So flip it underneath. I'm just cleaning off my plate here, brushing everything off. It's not a bad thing. Just check you haven't got any little bits stuck on your base plate there as well before you start. So good housekeeping is important with this, or else you will end up with little dents and dinks in your card. Run that through the machine. I would probably recommend going through once. I'm just going to come back twice because I can get where I started and use this here. And again, remove that. You'll see the die's just popping off here like so. Pull that away. On the die itself, most of the bits have already just dropped out. A tap and that will get rid of those. And then with this one, because it's got a coated surface, they've all cut, but you can see just a little second or so just to get rid of the parts from inside. Okay, so that's how we line that up and obviously clean that up. And our third cut will be just the same. So procedure will be tape on, ready to put it into position. And again, I'm just visualizing a couple of mil either side, tape down, and that will be fine. You'll see as it cuts, everything will line up there or thereabouts. Then I'll run this through, and in true TV style, I'm going to show you the one I've prepared earlier on, which I have here. I actually have a couple of them here. Let me just get rid of some of the bits. Again, good housekeeping when you're working with this die. These bits will just pop up and cause you problems otherwise. Okay, so I've got my cuts here. I've done two. One's for an emergency just in case something goes wrong. What I've done is I've gone ahead now and cut my 4 cuts here, and that's produced now my image, which I now have here. And the thing is, if I can just show you this to the camera, what I said about just going through once, the more we cut, it stresses the paper slightly. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera, but it's just slightly buckled. Now what you can do with that is just, when we've finished fully cutting, just flatten it within a book or something like that, just to keep the pressure down onto it, and then just slightly flatten it out. That said, when we glue it, most of those tiny wrinkles will disappear. But the next thing to do now is to come back with our die, and I'll just liberate that for us, and do the cuts top and bottom. So if I can just show you here, again, I'm just going to line this up visually. Now, what we're trying to do is just try to keep a line roughly the same from there to there. So we've got a straight line in which to put our greeting in. You don't have to be wildly accurate. I don't want people to think, oh, I've got to measure. You can if you want, but I would just say, well, I'll move that up to there. As long as it's central, it's there or thereabouts, and then just pop that down like so. And I'm ready for cutting again. So I'll just bring my machine in here. Now this time, we want it to go like an arrow that way. So it breaks down the cutting action to a much more easy one for the machine. I'm just going to make sure all my plates are clean, because I don't want any little bits dropping in, and then just simply run that through like we've done last time, like so. That will come away, and again I've got all these bits in here, so they just need to come out. Just run that through. You can tell even on this machine, because I cut in the middle, the pressure is it isn't as good as the sides. It's pretty good across it. Now everything has cut, and you can see all I'm having to do is just release this. Now each card or stock is a little bit different. Some will be coated, some not. And I said this just needs a tiny little bit of help to get it on its way, or a tap. And then we're there. So I will just again clean this off and tap my die, just get these bits out like so, clean off and put the last one back in there. So before I line it up, tape on. Coincidentally, you can see the cut there, that's pretty well lined up really nicely on there. I'm happy with that. And I think you'll start to get the feel of where it is. The edge of the die, it comes in by about 1.5 millimeters before the cutting line, so that gives you a rough guide. So it will always be a little bit over, as it were. That will appear to drop down a little bit more. That's there or thereabouts. Again, do it visually, don't panic. It's all going to look lovely when you cut it. As ever, least resistance as I cut. Clean my boards off. I don't want any of these bits on here. they will create a mark, and through I go. Pull that off, pop that to one side, and again, all I've got to do now is get rid of these bits. This is quite strong. You can sort of flick it a bit like this if you want to. The temptation is to be quite precious. Oh, I don't want to break it, but you'll be surprised, especially on a 300 GSM card like this, how strong it all is. Okay, so that can go to one side now. And again, I'm just going to clear down some bits. And we're ready to cut. Now all I want to do is put here a greeting, happy birthday in silver. But before I do that, I'm ready to mount it onto the card. And onto my stock here, I've chosen a nice purple card, and I will just line that up at about there, like so, so I can see the colour coming through. Now if I just release this, you can see it's a little bit bow-shaped. If I hold that up to the camera, you'll see that it's not quite flat, it's a slightly rounded. Now the glue will help with this, but pressing it in the book a couple of hours or overnight might not be bad, but I think we can get away with that. So what I'm going to do is glue this. Now you've got a number of choices for the gluing. I'm going to use my wet glue here and just try and fire this one up if I can. And first of all, make sure I've got glue all around the edges. I think that's important. And then obviously all of my areas here, like so. And I'm just going to try and dab a little bit across on these ones as well, so I can grab some of this trellis. It will grip as it glues, and that will help just nail it down. I have in the past used a glue gun, and that's fairly successful, but sometimes it creates a silvery shadow underneath there. So the next thing to do is just tidy up. Wouldn't have been a bad thing to have worked on a piece of waste paper under there, possibly. Again, that's a handy hint, which I should follow myself. Okay, that's to there. So the next thing now, just place this down like so. I tend to favour having a little bit more space at the bottom. That's just me. And now with a clean piece of kitchen towel, I will just start pressing this down gently so it begins to stick. You can see where it's taking, and any excess can just pick up. Some of it you'll see just poking through, but this glue dries clear, so when it's finally dried out, we won't hopefully see any of the glue that sits within there, but just at the moment while it's still opaque while it's drying. But as you can see here, a few dabs of my trusty kitchen towel will start to lift that glue up and away. Now I think that's pretty well down. So the next thing to do is to get my greeting in here. I want the word happy birthday, and I'm going to match my purple type, and I'm going to go for the bigger one. So really the next thing for me to do now is just to cut the word and or words. So back to my trusty cutter here, and to make life a bit easier, I'll just slice that one off there. What I do like with this is just using the offcuts and bits and pieces work well. I'm going for the larger word, so I'm just going to pop it like so. I love this machine, but this is where it would be nice to be able to stick it onto the stock first and just see where you're cutting. But I know I've got, do you know, I could do the whole lot really and keep those words another time if I wanted to, or just cut like so. Clean my top plate off. I've had a few of these little white bits floating around. They're great for Christmas cards, by the way. You can keep them, make snow for shaker cards. Run that through there, and you can see my happy and my birthday. I've got my happy. Get the birthday out. Keep those two there. That can go off to one side. Whoops. Quick brush down, And we're back to here. Now, I just want to make sure everything's going to fit properly. So before I commit to gluing, I've just caught that word there, so I'm just to put it back. I'm going to go happy there, birthday there. Yeah, and that's going to line up about right there for the gluing. So, as ever, I can probably just glue straight onto my kitchen towel here. A few dots. And down it goes. I've got a few seconds just to move things around if I want to. I'm happy with that. And again, with birthday, just a few dots of glue on there to hold it. Instantly the glue spreads as you put the pressure on it, it kind of spreads its way around. So that's why just a few little dots are fine. Like so there. Just to hold it into position and then press down with a bit of towel. This will pick up any excess glue and just helps to put a little bit of pressure while it's drying. I said that acrylic glue is really quick for gluing, and there we go. That's our card. I think it looks lovely. We've got the purple coming through behind. We've matched, and that's the beauty of these dies. You can now design and match everything together. So I've got purple showing through, and that same stock that I've used there for the background matches the type as well. And it's that ability to colour coordinate, I think, that makes our card making so good. Right, so this, again, a lovely card, fairly quick to make. What I'd like to do now is just another demonstration, quick demonstration to show you how, although this is what we call a reverse cut die, we can actually physically cut these out and use them if we want to. For this next demonstration, I want to show you how we can use our trellis corner, but actually physically cut it out so you can place this anywhere that you want on the card. And we can do that because as the die cuts, it creates an embossing line, and that's what we're going to follow to cut. So I'd like to make a card similar to this for you, just to show you how it all comes together. Now, I've pre-cut 4 of these out, and you can see them here. I've cut them out, but let me make one up for you and run you through the process. So I'll just pop that to one side, bring in my cutter here, and again, what I'm going to do is just cut this out. I can tape it on there. I seem to have got into a habit of taping. So let's just pop a little bit of tape on. But allow some room for us to cut as well. There we go. And that will go through, we want it to go through with least resistance. So just like that. And before I can do that, on my smaller machine, just make sure it can go through, which it now can do. Okay, so line up all my plates. That one's down, that one on top, and through the machine we go. Not too fast, and then back again. We want to get a nice indent on this. I'll just pop that down there, like so. You can already see the bits are all flying out as we start. Carefully pull that off, and again, clean up as I go. A few little bits in there, a few taps. They're all out. And now you should be able to clearly make out this outline here, and that's the one that we're going to use to cut with. Now, most of this is straight lines, so I would suggest that we use a ruler here and cut that. Now you'll see most of this is made up of straight lines, and I would suggest what we do is just use that as a guideline initially to cut this out. So I'm using my craft knife. You can, of course, use scissors if you want to. That is entirely up to you. And on this one here, but I start off with the straight lines there, I'm just going to quickly pop my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Now, this is perhaps the trickiest one, and again, I'm just going to freehand cut in with my knife here, although I'm equally as happy using a pair of scissors, to be honest. So we just cut that to there, come round like this, and that gives us, as I said, a lovely guideline to follow. And then that should just come away like so, and that's my basic shape there. And a few little things I probably could have come in closer on that line and just round off the corners. Again, you might prefer to use your scissors for that. I'm just going to round that, or as I said, you can just take a pair of scissors and just snip a little bit off the corners if you want to round them off. I'm just being a bit pedantic, you don't have to. As long as the line is roughly equal all the way round, we're good with that. So the next thing to do is just stick these down onto the card, and I'm going to pop these right up onto the corner. So the gluing, as usual, is just a case of popping a few dots of glue on, whoops, just to hold it down. I can pick some of that up, and then a little bit along the trellis here just to hold it into position as it sticks. The edges are obviously the most important because we don't want those curling up. And as usual, I can pull that away. If I've got some excess on there, I can just lift that up. And what I'm going to do now is just pop this right up onto the corner here, like so. Again, just using a little bit of kitchen towel, rub that down, and any excess glue, you can polish this, it's like metal, but just get it sticking first, just hold it down, let that acrylic glue get in, start to bind, and there we go. So what I'm going to do now is just go on and put these other 4 ones on. Just go ahead and stick those on. Okay, I've now glued down my 4 corners, my trellis corners here, and you can see that creates a lovely card. So really the next thing to do now is to embellish this, and what I'd like to do is use my embellishments here. I'm going to use the butterflies and my leaf flourish leaf here. So I'm going to go ahead now, just stick these down, and I'm just going to go round the edge like so and just get these to trail this part of the card here. So I'll go ahead and stick those, and then we'll come back to it and I'll show you the butterflies. Okay, I've gone ahead and put my leafy flourish on. Again, this is on the website, so I didn't have a chance to really explore this die this time, but we will be coming back to that one. But you can see it makes for a lovely surround. So the next thing to do is just pop my butterflies on, and to save a little bit of time, I've gone ahead and pre-cut these. So all I'm going to do now is just decorate the card with my butterflies. So again, a little bit of glue, a few dots of glue to hold them down, and just place them on the card like so. As ever, use my tissue there to hold it. You can let the wings stay up a little bit if you want to. You can let those fold, but it's up to you, or you can have it flat. It doesn't look too bad if you allow them to just stick up a little bit. So in that case, if that's the technique, only just glue the center of the body there, and then when you stick it down, you can just hold it into position. Again, I just press it down with a craft knife, and that will allow those to come up when it's dry, like so. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and put the butterflies on this card. I've gone ahead now and I've put on the leafy flourish and the butterflies, as you can see. So the card's nearly finished. The last finishing touch is to use our happy birthday, which I've cut out of silver mirror board, and I'll just pop that on there, and I think we'll have a lovely card. So I've just gone ahead and glued the word happy, and I'm using the larger one here. So again, this is actually a part of the design. Never forget that the words are important. Sometimes you want little ones, but don't be afraid to use larger words as well, because it looks beautiful cut in the mirror board, but it does become part of the design. That's the art teacher and me coming out there. There we go. And I'll just place that there like so. And again, a final little dab that gets rid of any of the other glue. And you can polish, the Miri board's lovely to work with because if you get glue on it, you can polish it. And there we go, that's our finished card. What we've done is taken our trellis corner and cut them out using the embossed line that happens when you cut it. And for that now, you've got the ability to put them wherever you want. And you could rearrange them. I mean, this is just my serving suggestion for you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the demonstrations and you've learnt a little something from them. Remember, all the dies that I'm using can be bought from our shop at papercrafts.co.uk. It's our all occasion dies range. If there's anything that you've seen, and obviously I can only touch the surface here with the dies that we've got, but we've got a lot more to offer you. And over the following programmes, I hope to introduce new ones to you and just show you some of the things that you can do and introduce into your card making. Anyway, I hope you enjoy your crafting. Take care. Bye-bye.